morning, Joy.
Good morning.
I wonder why the camera is there. I assumed it would be able to do this. We are still waiting for folks to join us. So I'm going to move our camera so that you can see who's here. But give us a couple minutes and we'll get started.
Sounds good.
Can you hear okay?
Yeah, I can hear everything. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're perfect. We're just I'm playing around with the hybrid working stuff. So yeah, Andrew, let me know too if the sound ever goes off. But if you can help admit people, Andrew, are you able to see?
Yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
How do we feel about people's autopilots joining?
Good question.
Like FRT members.
Yeah, do we want to wait until folks get here and we can check in with them?
That sounds fine to me.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, what do you think, Andrew? Are we gonna, there's not client information, there is data we're looking at, but it doesn't feel, it's not at the client level, it's at the system level. So we should be okay.
So I don't think there's like a confidentiality issue there. I think for the FRT to function well, it needs to be able to have candid conversations in a way that having like recordings or transcriptions might impact people, or it might not. I don't know. I'm just thinking through stuff, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, maybe when we do introductions, let's talk about that, because I think that especially for folks that are new, that might not be
Yeah.
something that they've experienced. So let's plan to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Does this look okay, Andrew? Where do you normally put the computer when you've done? Is this good?
Let's see. I can sort of not like I can only see. Well, it's really narrow. I don't know if like changing the view would make it.
I think the only thing I could do is like put it up
Oh no,
high.
that looks good when I'm in
That looks better.
speaker. Yeah, that's fine. I can pretty much see the room.
No. Or just like random stuff sitting around. How does that look? Does that extra height feel better? That's more at like
Yeah,
eye
I think it
level.
helps a little bit. But yeah, I think
Andrew,
that's
do
pretty
you
good.
normally leave the sound right, the little sound box right by the screen, or do you find it helps to move?
The thing with the camera? Or I'm not sure. Is there a different sound box?
Does the Logitech have a camera?
Are you talking about the big silver thing?
Yeah.
That's the camera, yeah.
So we could use this camera and not Emily's. I'm using
Are you
Emily's
using
right now.
Emily's? Okay,
Yeah.
so do you see on the big silver thing that there's a little like oval
I'm not seeing
somewhere?
and I'm
Like
not seeing an
on one side of it?
Oh yeah. Do I just turn that on?
So that's actually a remote control. If you pick that up, like it doesn't look like it, but you can just grab it and then the camera's right behind that.
Oh,
And so there's a
wow.
plug coming off that, and if you plug that plug in, it'll be like a whole speakerphone setup. I didn't realize you weren't using that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, this is new for me. So sorry.
You might have to leave the meeting and join again.
Okay, wait. So I have this. Now what?
Okay, so there also is a USB cord coming off of the silver thing that you want to plug into your computer.
Okay. Oh, does that? Okay. Oh, okay, cool. This is Emily's computer. Okay, and then do I turn this on? This isn't on.
Yeah, turn it on.
And you think I'll come back?
I think it's switching. Yeah, it just switched.
Let me turn this off and then I'll turn
Okay.
this.
Can you hear me through the dealio now? Like you should hear me through the TV, I think.
I can hear you. Can you hear us now? I just took us off mute.
Uh-huh.
Perfect. Okay.
And then if you
Um,
turn the TV on, I think I'll be, or if you put your laptop into the TV, I'll be on the TV or whoever it's talking, you know.
You're already on. Yeah, you're already on
Oh,
the screen.
great. I
It
love
was just
being
the
Big Brother.
Logitech that I didn't know.
Yeah,
But
so that's like a speaker, big room speaker. So it'll be better able to capture people talking like further away.
okay, let me see though, because the camera turned off and I'm not quite sure why. Let's see.
You might have to go into the settings and tell it to use, I think it's called Connect or something like that.
Would I be able to do that on here? I'm Christine. Christine, nice to meet you.
Yeah, like in Teams. The settings are in Teams.
Yeah,
Like under more than settings, than device settings. I can share my screen if that's helpful. No, wait, it was showing the camera for a second. So you can't turn the camera on?
Try clicking camera at the top and see if that.
That's for this. Oh, okay. So then,
No,
yeah,
I think that is it. It switched to that.
it did. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. All
Yeah, it's working now.
right, let me then close this. That's so interesting. Can you all hear and see us okay?
Uh-huh.
Perfect. All right, then I'll let her know that this stays. And then I'm going to grab a couple other folks. And then I think, let's see, we are waiting for, Meryl's not able to be here. Just waiting on, and I see Joy. Marshall, I see you. I saw Faith's Otter, so I'm guessing Faith's going to be joining virtually. Patricia, okay, Patricia's on. Let me just see if there's anyone else, and then I think we can go ahead and get started. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Thanks for everyone's patience. And Morgan will be joining probably just a little bit late, so we can go ahead and get started in the interest of time. I'm just going to do one last check to see if we're missing any other critical folks.
Thanks, Patricia. Do you go by Patricia or Pat? What do you feel comfortable with? And we'll do introductions too, because this is actually the first time, like the time since we've all been here. Okay. I think we have everyone. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do introduction. I'll start with me and then I'll kick it over to Lori and then we'll pass it over to you guys on the screen. Can you hear us okay still? The volume feeling good? Awesome. Okay, I'm Kristen Kunis. I'm the one that's been pestering you with all the emails. I am the Human Services Policy Specialist with the Office of Community and Economic Development. Andrew, we're not ready for Kelly yet, so don't worry about editing her. And yeah, that is me.
I'm Lori Lutumsky, and I'm the Community Resource Coordinator for Ypsilanti Township currently, but I retired from Synod Community Services doing mental health work for 33 years.
Andrew, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Kramer. I'm part of the team here at OCED, and I'm the Data and Evaluation Specialist, and I also do the COC competition. So Christian's been peppering you with emails. Now I'll be peppering you with emails soon about that.
Do you want to go next?
I can go next. This is Amanda Carlisle. I am the director of the Washtenaw Housing Alliance, and I think I might be the only former FRT member that is currently here today. Thanks.
And I see Marshall. Can you go next? You're next on my screen.
Yeah, totally. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marshall Averill. My day job is in student support at the community college. I also have worked in the nonprofit sector for about 10 years, serving in different capacities. I'm excited to meet you all and to work together.
Joy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joy Clute. I am the Director of Service Programs for Friends Indeed and have been with the organization for about 3 years now. And prior to that, I was a Housing Resource Specialist for HAWK.
Oh, I didn't know that, Joy. That's good to know. I saw Rebecca's having technical issues. Rebecca is also with Office of Community and Economic Development. She's our HMIS specialist. HMIS stands for Holistic Management Information System, which is what we use for all things data. And then Patricia. And I think Patricia, you said that you were also having sound stuff, but Patricia Davis, let me go back and see if I don't know if I had an agency listed for you, but feel free to put it in the chat if you wanted to share that. We'll keep that in mind, Patricia. Okay, thanks, Amanda. Awesome. So we're just really excited to have kind of new faces, new backgrounds to the space. This is our first meeting, so I just kind of wanted to give you a rundown of like what to expect for today. As the agenda shows, we're going to give you a bit of a look at our system data just to give some important context as you're reviewing this information. We hope you have time to review the very long packet of information. The goal of today, as we go through each agency, is really just to not review it in detail, because our hope is that you've already reviewed it. It's really going to be the space where you all and we are talking about any questions, concerns we have. What we're going to do is, as I shared before in an email, we are going to have each agency representative that will come in or either pop on for a portion of the time so that you can also ask the questions directly and get the answers. There are times where myself and Andrew might have quick answers, particularly as it relates to data or just kind of contextual information, and Amanda too, given her history. But other things we won't be able to answer and want you all to be able to speak to the agency themselves. We are not going to be ending today with any type of recommendation. The goal of that is for actually next week's meeting. Once we've reviewed the last 3 agencies, then we'll come together and say, okay, how do we all feel about what the request is for each agency? Do we feel comfortable with the amount? And what is your collective recommendation? Does that make sense for today and what the goal is? Yeah. Any questions about that? Okay. We are recording. I wanted to kick it over to Andrew. One of the things we were talking about before folks got on is, I think, I don't know if the autopilot is still listed as one of in the waiting room. Did that drop off, Andrew? Okay, sounds good. You're muted.
You can catch the view.
Oh, you're
I was literally saying, I think a non-issue. Yeah.
okay. We'll try to make this available. Meryl, who is also on this committee and joined, just like most of you, couldn't make it. And so we want to make sure that they have access to this. And it should hopefully kick out a transcript, fingers crossed. Yeah, we're not ready for them. That's an agency representative.
Gotcha.
So, okay, I think that is it for now. What we're going to start with is Andrew's going to go over the system data, which starts on, I did have page numbers for those that were in person today. But for those that are still looking at the old packet, it's just the right thing, the next thing after the agenda.
Yeah, morning again, everybody. So I'm going to share some data with you. You may or may not have had a chance to look at what's in the packet. I'm going to be jumping around, not jumping, but skipping through a few of the slides in the interest of time. This is meant to be useful for all of you, especially those of you who are kind of newer to the system. So please feel free to interrupt, ask questions, make this for you. This is for you. Like we're not doing this just for fun. We really want to help you get some important context for our system. So this is sort of, and this is like, right, we just got the data in for for July. So this is a little old, it's about a month old, but the trends we're going to see are pretty consistent.
And
so this is where we were.
Sorry, the waiting in the lobby, just because it's blocking your screen.
Is it what's blocking my screen?
It says waiting. It's just the Kelly alert. If you just X out of it.
Oh, I think that might be on Emily's screen.
Right.
I don't have it on my screen.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. But yeah,
No.
let's get that out of the way.
And then you can close it. Thank you.
Cool.
You just deny them. Yeah. No.
Okay, so here's where we sort of were after the first 6 months of 2023. At the end of June, we had 629 people experiencing homelessness. That is quite a lot for historically. That's pretty much an all-time high. That's up about 140%, so almost 2.5 times what we had just a year before. There's a couple reasons why it jumped up so much. The part of it is the June of 2022 was the last month we had the eviction moratorium in place in Washtenaw County. And that really prevented a lot of people from kind of entering homelessness as quickly because they weren't being evicted. They were able to sort of stay in their units. That was part of it. Another thing is we had robust COVID response programs. We had an eviction prevention program called the COVID Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or SARA, that gave away around $25 million in our community. And that ended in October of last year. And then the other thing that really contributed to this is the enormous kind of inflation we all experience, both the rise in just the general cost of living, but also the rise in rents. So kind of all three of those factors together have sort of created, kind of this enormous rise in homelessness. And I'll talk about who that's impacted in a second. At the same time, with rising rents and at the same time fewer vacancies, we're housing people just a little bit slower around the same time, but we're housing slightly fewer people. So we're down about 16% in the number of people we housed this year. Even if we were at the same amount we were at last year, we'd be at like 230, maybe 240. I mean, you can see that's not going to kind of get the job done if we're trying to end homelessness. It's going to help a lot of people, and that's really important. But the level of homelessness we're seeing is sort of kind of surpassing what our system can deal with at once. This next set of data is from what we call our by name lists, and that's exactly what it sounds like. We keep a list by name of everyone we know experiencing what HUD calls literal homelessness. So that's staying in a place not meant for human habitation, or like in a shelter or somewhere else temporary like that. And we keep that list. We track different populations with it, and that's the list we use to make referrals to things like shelter and things like permanent housing resources. So it kind of gives us a close to real-time look at who's experiencing homelessness in the county. So this is a look overall at the people experiencing homelessness. So this is measured in people, not households. Um, but you can still see there's this enormous kind of blue section. That's families with children. So that's a parent with at least one minor child. And it's measured in people. So each household in there is going to be between two and maybe 9 or 10 people. But still, you can see this is like over half our system right now, about 2/3 of our system. And back in June of last year in July, it was about half our system. The growth we've seen this year among homelessness has been majority among families with children. Um, we've seen a bit of a rise in non-chronic adults, which is this yellow block, and then chronic single adults, which is this darker block. Chronic homelessness is a kind of a special definition. That's when someone experiences literal homelessness for more than 1 year out of the past 3, and also has a disability that impacts their ability to stay housed. So they're sort of our highest needs population. So that plus the non-chronic is sort of our single adults population. And then at the bottom is our veterans population. We'll see their numbers in a second. It's in the low 20s. They're a great example of what a system could look like if it's properly resourced. Do you see how flat this line is? And I'll jump to the next chart. You can see it jumped up a little 1 month, but it's just nice and flat and pretty even. This system's well resourced because the VA has resources for just about every veteran on demand. And so as soon as we identify them, we can link them up to a housing resource, and boom, we get them housed on average in less than 100 days. We do find that a veteran will kind of pop up again to replace them in our system. Just about as soon as we have someone, there's someone else who has needs. But we're kind of able to maintain at least an equilibrium. And this is an improvement over where we were before the pandemic when we were in the mid-30s. Let me just use this chart to explain. You're going to see this chart a couple times to kind of explain what's going on. So the bar at the top is just the number of people. So in June, we had 24 veterans at the end of June experiencing homelessness. And similarly, the gray just kind of shows that, and you can see the scale over here. The blue bars going up represent inflow. That's people coming into our system. So that's kind of, you can think about it as adding to the number of people who were there before. The bars going down are outflow, so people leaving, and we sort of have 2 categories. We have exits to housing. That's what we want to see. That's someone moving into a permanent housing destination. And then we have moved to inactive, which sort of covers everything else. So that can be anything from we lost contact with the client, they moved out of county and are no longer eligible. It could be that they found moved into a hotel or something that they're paying for, so they left the category 1 status, but not in like a permanent way. So there's sort of a bunch of different definitions there, but those are the 2 kind of ways we sort of think about them. Did they exit to housing or not? You can see the dark bar for the veterans is almost all of the exits. So most of the exits we see in the veteran system are to housing. Gonna skip a couple. This is what length of time looks like for veterans. It's a good baseline. As I said, this is a well-resourced system. So you can see our goal is 90 days. We're not quite there. But you can see even during the height of the pandemic, we didn't get much above 100 days, and we're back down to kind of where we were. Here's a look at chronic homelessness. Again, this is long-lasting homelessness with a disability. You can see this number sort of gradually risen over time a bit. Some of that is also like we clean it up every so often and sort of pull off people who we have to be able to verify someone's chronicity. It's a whole thing to be able for them to be eligible for the resources that are reserved for this population. So sometimes it goes down a little bit because of that, but around 40 to 60 is pretty typical for us. You can see there's not a lot of dark exits here. We don't have a lot of resources for these folks. These aren't people we necessarily expect to self-resolve or end their homelessness kind of on their own. We typically prioritize folks experiencing chronic homelessness for a resource called permanent supportive housing. That's an ongoing subsidy with ongoing supportive services for the duration that they're there. It's a great service, but obviously we only have so many and they're all full, so we can only kind of put someone new in them when someone moves on from them. Length of time for chronic people is really long. It took us over 300 days so far this year. So that's most of a year to kind of sit on our list and wait for that resource. And again, that's because the resource is just so limited because it's currently occupied. Here's non-chronic adults. So these are still experiencing homelessness, but maybe not reaching that chronic definition. They may still have a disability. What's really notable here, just look at the there's no exits to housing practically. We don't have a lot of resources, unfortunately, for this population. One of the biggest that we have actually comes through the ESG grant that we're talking about. I don't know if we're talking about Avalon today. We are. So the Avalon Rapid Rehousing Grant is our primary resource. It's a phenomenal grant. It works wonderfully, but it's not that big. So that's sort of what's going on with the non-chronic population. We've seen a bit of a rise this year in how long it's taking to house people. That might be a sign of kind of the market getting tighter or just sort of the lack of resources. And finally, here's where we are with families. You can see this kind of huge rise. Some of this little, it kind of go levels out here and then jumps up. Some of that's really not there. We were having some assessment delays. So if we knew where everybody was, it probably would have just gradually gone up a bit more. But you can see we were at 38 families last June, 124 this June. So, that's roughly triple. Huge amounts of people kind of coming into our system. Lots of new people. On this one, you can see the orange bars going up are sort of generally people new to our system, and then some of the other colors mean we might have housed them once and they came back. That's what the lighter orange and the red mean. You can see most of the people are new to our system. We're seeing a widening pool of families enter our system. So, it's I think the way to think about it is the pool of people who, maybe were living paycheck to paycheck before, and then things got really expensive. Now they're having a hard time making rent. The people who are at risk for homelessness, it's just a bigger group now. And a lot of families are kind of entering our system. Our exits to housing this whole time, pretty stable. We're still housing people at a similar rate. It's just that we couldn't, we were sort of keeping up when we were in the 30s. We can't keep up when we're at 124, unfortunately. Length of time for families has jumped dramatically this year. This is definitely a tightening in the market. I don't have a slide for this, but we looked at how length of time looked for families of different sizes. And what we found was for smaller families, like 3 and under, and a typical family is a single mother, and in fact, a single Black mother. And so a mother with 2 kids, they would be housed in about 50 to 60 days. And it was like 150 days for families 4 and up. So there's just a real kind of thing happening in the market, especially for larger families. And that's part of what's also tipping families into homelessness. Competition's harder for houses in the area or larger apartments, and that's leading to higher prices and more people entering homelessness. So this next thing is gonna be some assessment data. We use a tool called the VI-SPDAT. That stands for Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool. Write that down. There'll be a quiz at the end. I'm just kidding. What it does is it does kind of 2 things for us. It's supposed to tell us both how vulnerable someone is in their homelessness, and that's really in terms of mortality, how likely is it that this person's going to be facing deadly circumstances as a result of being homeless. And the other thing it's supposed to do is sort of help identify what's the right level of service. So if we had just all the resources at hand, and they were all available, what would we give this person? Would it be rapid rehousing, which is just a short-term subsidy and short-term services? We help you get housed, we support you for a while till you're stable, and then we sort of gradually step out of the picture. Or is it permanent supportive housing? Is that long-term subsidy with the ongoing service, is that the right resource? So what we saw coming into our system this year for individuals is really interesting. We're seeing a bit of a growth, but we're seeing actually a majority in the rapid rehousing range. That's new for our system. We typically see more people in the permanent supportive housing range. Given that we haven't been seeing tons and tons of housing outcomes, I don't think this indicates that we're gradually housing all the higher needs people and kind of working our way down. That's the way our system's supposed to work. I'd like to say that's happening. But what I think is really happening here is the same thing on the family side. The rising rents, rising cost of living, a bigger pool of people at risk for homelessness and tipping into it. Here's demographics for individuals. About 70% Black or African American. That's a gross disparity. Washtenaw County is 12 to 13% in the general population. Individual homelessness tends to skew more male. And we're seeing a bit more of an older population lately. We're kind of keeping an eye on that. This number in the 55 plus range trends upward. And especially if you've been experiencing homelessness for a long time, homelessness ages you faster. There's lots of studies on this. So 55 is a pretty advanced age, especially if you have a lot of history of homelessness. On the family side, this is sort of what our VI SPDAT scores look like over time. We track racial disparity because there's historically been a racial disparity in the VI SPDAT across the country and everywhere it's sort of been used. You can see it sort of went away for a while. It's a little back this year, but this chart also sort of shows that drop in acuity I was talking about. On the family side, we're seeing totally the opposite. We're seeing more and more families with higher needs showing up in our system, more in that permanent supportive housing range. We don't have a lot of permanent supportive housing on the family side. Most of our resources are rapid rehousing. And you can see only a third of the families kind of coming into our system are showing up in that range that says this is the right resource for those families. As I mentioned, overwhelmingly, the head of households are women, single women who are Black. This is just a huge racial disparity. I think it says a lot about our county. We're not unique in this. I mean, this is like all of America, but these economic factors are affecting everybody in the county, right? But it's like single Black women who are being forced into homelessness. And here's that rise in acuity. You can see again. I have some program data too, but I know we want to, I'm kind of out of time, right? So
Yeah.
why don't I stop there?
Can you hear?
What's that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. How many more slides do we have? We're a bit over on time, and I think there were some new slides that weren't included in the packet. So if we can email that to the FRT, that would be great. Do you have how many more slides do you have?
Let's see. Like 4 or 5.
I'm going to kick this over to the FRT. So just to give you all kind of a clue in, we have some time on the back end. So let's check in and see how you're all feeling. We can ebb and flow. I did ask the agency representatives to be here at a certain time. So there is a possibility if we keep going and don't shift gears that they might have to drop off. And so I want to be sensitive of that. We could pause and then with the extra time, just go back to the data. How do you all feel about that? I don't want to leave you without context when we shift towards the agencies, but are you okay with us shifting back towards the agencies, or do you have questions for Andrew now? I see Marshall's thumbs up. Thanks, Marshall.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Okay, let's shift gears. Sorry, Andrew, that I know that's disruptive.
I'm heartbroken, but I'll make it.
Okay, so we actually have Ozone House up next. We do have Kelly in the waiting room. I want to, before admitting her, I just wanted to kind of give you a quick rundown. Kelly is the executive director with Ozone House. So she'll be available to answer any questions you have. And I'm actually going to lean on the committee to see how you all want to do this. We're still kind of piloting this model of having the agency representative present at the time of review. So we can take a quick 5 minutes and talk about questions, concerns, things you're really looking for clarification now, or we can bring Kelly in and she can be a part of the dialogue and answer anything that's coming up. What would you like to see? Feel about that, Kelly joining and us kind of getting into it. Do others feel good about that? I see Marshall's head nod. Thanks, Marshall. Joy, Patricia, if you can't unmute, feel free to just put something in the chat.
I'd be perfectly fine with having Kelly answer questions after her presentation or information and go from there.
So Kelly doesn't have any presentation or anything to kind of share. The goal of her is just to kind of answer any questions you have after your review of the performance rubric and the survey and the budget, which we hope you have time to review in advance. So she doesn't have anything formal. She would just be here as a sounding board and an opportunity to ask, answer things that are coming up for you.
Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. I don't mind having that discussion beforehand as a group.
Okay, before Kelly joins.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give it a couple minutes. So where are you all at? What questions? And I do have Amanda Sternberg, who is another resident expert from the funding review team who has served many, many times. I have her questions, so I'll read them off after, but she wasn't able to be here, so she does have some questions that I think we can get answered. But
I can just start with a couple of questions. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm like having some issues. Okay. So my questions for ozone were, I think, just two. One was, I think, as I understand it, the person's receiving, excuse me, prevention assessment exiting to positive destinations was 43%. Is that correct? I just wanted to clarify, I guess, with Andrew or Rebecca, the data people. And the other question was around their destination in their HMIS data quality, the section 4, that destination was missing like 25% of the records, as I understand it, was missing. And so just wondering if Ozone has a plan in place to get that destination data as well as the income and sources at exit data in the future. I think those were my only two.
looks like Andrew's looking at for your first question. In the meantime, Amanda S also had the same question about the 25%. It seemed really high, and there wasn't anything to explain steps to address that. So I think that's a good one for Kelly.
Yeah, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that's yeah, like that would have been a pretty big error if I made that.
Can you guys hear me? I know Crystal and I have been working with Penny, the agency admin at Ozone, and there's been like a lot of new additions to some of their programs and things in HMIS, and there's been a lot of work with end users errors. So I know that's been a thing over there, and we're working with Penny on that as well. I don't know if that would contribute to that high amount, but
yeah, I assumed it was maybe part of the reason. And I did note that it said in some of their responses that they're working with OCD to open up their pages to have their data and other data across the system shared for young people that are over the age of 18, which seemed like that could also help with the data quality.
I was curious if I saw that the staff had been through some various DEI unconscious bias type trainings, but that there wasn't any specific equity plan or strategy that was being used to benchmark those efforts. And so I was curious if there is a plan to further that work in the future.
Great question. I think that's a good one too to ask when Kelly gets here. The only other data question that I think might be worth confirming. Well, actually, no, I'll just read off what Amanda is the feedback. She also asked about the destination, so we'll park that for Kelly. She also said they are projecting to serve an increased number of youth from 35 to 44. Is this reasonable given they are not requesting additional funding? Do they have the capacity to serve this increased number of youth? Which I think is a good one for Kelly, so I can plan to read that off. Overall, I'm fine with them receiving continued funding, but would like to answer these questions. Anything else on the data end that we can answer before we admit Kelly and just kind of ask any open-ended questions that are coming up for people? Andrew, do you feel comfortable going in and adding her? Do you still see her in the lobby? Kelly? Thank you. Kelly, can you hear me okay? Well, welcome. This is the Funding Review Team Committee kickoff meeting. Thank you so much for your patience. We have been going a bit behind or a bit over on time, so we appreciate your flexibility. I would kind of do introductions, but I'm a bit hesitant to given the time. What do you all think? I'm going to do introductions. Is that okay? Or just pass? What do you think?
You just do a quick introduction. I'm Amanda with the Housing Alliance.
Kelly, do you want to kick it off too and just share who you are? And
yeah, hi, I'm Kelly Rutledge. I'm the executive director here at Ozone House. And I've been with the agency for about a year and 2 months in my current permanent role.
Kristen, OCD.
Lori from Ypsi Township Community Resource Coordinator.
Hi, Morgan Boydston, OCD.
I'm Emily. I'm with OCD too.
My name is Marshall. I work at the community college.
My name is Joy Clute. I'm the Director of Service Programs for Friends Indeed.
Good morning, Andrew Kramer with OCED.
Rebecca Zazani with OCED.
I think that leaves Patricia, who's been having some difficulties with her microphone. But Patricia Davis is the last FRT member. We are missing two from today. So that's Amanda Sternberg with Detroit COC and thanks, Patricia. And then Meryl Polimer. So we're just going to use the rest of the time to ask questions that the funding review team had about the materials. Again, we went over the performance rubric, the information that OCD pulls together, the agency survey, which Ozone House submitted along with the budget. There were 3 questions that we had that we were hoping to get clarification from. I might kick it over to Amanda and Marshall with their questions, and then I'll end with one from one of the FRT members that couldn't be here today.
Yeah, hi Kelly. I think, sorry, going on 2 questions. So in the second page of the materials that we received, it was looking at kind of program outcomes, and it said % of persons receiving a prevention assessment exiting to positive destinations was at 43%, with the goal, I believe, of being 85%. And so just curious what the how to meet that goal, I guess I'll just say. And then related to that, the question I had was around the HMIS data quality, which looked like, really good for most of it. And then destination and income and sources at exit. So data at exit were the 2 that I guess I just had questions about. What are the plans to improve that data quality, and what were maybe the reasons why some of that data wasn't in the HMIS?
Thank you for the questions. I'm going to do my best to answer, and then if there's anything that I can follow up with, Pam, who put together their packet, will be back into the office on Monday, so we can do any kind of written follow-ups. Generally speaking, I'll say for the data quality, over the past year, I think the team and OCED is aware that we've undergone quite a bit of transition. And during that time, we have now onboarded our new agency administrator for HMIS, and I think she's getting really caught up and up to speed on her role in HMIS and providing a lot of assistance and support to the staff that I think has been lacking over the past year. So I think with her support and oversight, the data quality aspects will certainly improve. And then if there's areas where we need to, be paying attention to as far as programmatic evaluation and how to better, improve our outcomes in general, we'll have that, and then can be working with the programs on enhanced training and case support.
Awesome, thank you.
If I could add, I noticed when I was making the rubric, that same standard and like the disparity, the standard is for, kind of historically associated with programs where we funded both case management and prevention actual assistance dollars. And this program is case management only. So it might be that we need to think about a different standard for case management only programs.
Marshall, do you want to go next?
Sure. So when reading the application, I noticed that there was some mention of staff going through various forms of DEI, unconscious bias type trainings, but not a formalized plan or strategic outlook. I was wondering if there was any intention to implement that type of strategic plan in the near future.
Yes, thank you for that question. So over the past year, we've been doing some of our workshop training work. We've been working with Dr. Daisha Price. And then we formed internally the equity assessment team as a requirement for our transition dollars as well. That assessment has been completed, and that information has been shared with our board and staff. We are currently in the process of formalizing our strategic plan. We had our strategic planning retreat on July 15th, where DEI is really going to be incorporated at all levels and all aspects of that plan. And we've onboarded a DEI expert, Dr. Price, onto our board to continue with guidance and expertise in the implementation and oversight of that.
I didn't get that.
Thank you for sharing that information.
I think the last question I have is on behalf of Amanda Sternberg, who again I said couldn't be here. She said you're projecting to serve an increased number of youth from 35 to 44 since last year. Do you think that that's reasonable given that you're not requesting any additional funding? Do you have the capacity to serve this increased number of youth?
My hope is that it is realistic, recognizing that there is an increased funding, and the funding that's associated with this grant funds about half, or 0.5 FTE of one of our case managers. But as I've been working on our staffing plan and budget for FY24 and kind of reviewing where we're at, I do intend to staff 5 case managers that would have various clients on their caseload for non-residential services. Right now, we currently have 3, and actually 2 are full-time for the non-residential population. So I think by enhancing our case management team and focusing on an effort there for the hiring and recruitment, that would be a achievable target.
I think I missed the funding source. Were you citing with the additional case managers would be paid for under? Is there an identified grant for that for those 5? Is it the millage?
We do have funding through the Washtenaw County millage that supports non-residential case management. Yes.
Are curious on the budget. You'll see on the right side of ODNA, they have listed the other funds that they would be using. So just wanted to drop those. Thanks, Kelly.
Looks like Angie might have a question.
I do. There's a Michael Gould in the waiting room, and I don't recognize the name, and I didn't know if they were maybe a new FRT member or with an agency.
Keep them in the waiting room. They're not
Okay.
I can message.
Thanks. Sorry.
Is there any more questions? Kelly, do you have any questions for the team? Okay. Thank you again so much. It was so helpful to have you here and to be able to directly answer the questions. Thank you. And
Yes,
filling in.
thank you. All right.
So thank you for your flexibility and stepping in for her.
Absolutely. I do have a quick follow-up. Is there
Yeah.
any additional written response you guys would like for any of the questions you asked?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Right, we've got Safe House coming up next, so I will email Avalon. They are ready and we're going over, so I'll make sure that they know we're a little bit over. Safe House, we do have Christine who is here in person, so I'll give you all a couple minutes and feel free to kind of just open dialogue, and then I'll go grab her when you're ready.
They have to wait on.
Christine has been missing time.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'd
Nope.
rather, yeah, if
No,
that's
no,
okay.
no.
Yeah, no, we're going to do it, like, if you guys want to, we can go forever. I was gonna give them a couple minutes to go over any questions.
In a minute.
Or anything that Andrew can answer ahead of time about the data. Program outcomes.
This is Amanda. My questions were related to the HMIS data. And I know that Safe House had previously had some challenges, and then they have this like comparable database that they submit the data. And so I was just curious if the missing data elements were like lost in translation when they're submitting data, or if those are truly just like they're not able to capture that data. So that was, I don't know if that's an HMIS staff question or a Christine question, but.
I don't know if Rebecca has any more context. This is from so they submit the annual report for their data that has to go to HUD, and so that's what I use to build this data. This is sort of that CAPER data we submitted. I suspect these are actual because I'm in the destination, I think people do leave and don't report. And then the social security number, I'm guessing, is just a different standard where they are only collecting the last 4, which would currently trigger an error in our HMIS. The HMIS data standard is changing. It hasn't changed yet. I'm not sure when that's happening. I think later this year, to be only last 4. So that problem will actually solve itself, if that makes sense.
And in terms of like our completing, so this data, is aggregated and then is reported to HUD in our HUD application. So because these numbers are relatively low in terms of like the number of clients served in the overall system, is it affecting our like HUD COC application in any way? That's my question. Or is it the numbers are low enough that it's balancing
So
out?
I think because it's in a comparable database and not in HMIS, the COC program data is the system performance data, which is run off our HMIS. This data is not actually a part of that.
Okay.
If that makes sense. It's part of like the CAPER data submission, but that's not, I don't know of any connection between that and funding.
Okay.
CAPER is a performance report. Sorry for people who don't know. This is really in the weeds. It's just an annual performance report for the Emergency Solutions Grant.
I might have missed, and I was emailing Avalon to let them know that we're running behind. Amanda, did you also flag, this is Amanda S., and she was also noting the high destination rate, 24%. Had you already mentioned that? Yeah, okay, sorry. I know that's not a data quality, Andrew. That's genuinely like just high, similar to Ozone House.
I mean, I couldn't answer I couldn't really answer it. Whatever it is it's happening at Safe House, and this is just what they're reporting to OCED.
Oh, got it. Okay. It looks like the other questions are just something I can ask Christine. Was there anything else for Andrew before I go bring her in? Okay. Then I'll grab her and then we'll do quick introductions too for her.
Everybody's seen people in person. You all can't hear, but Kristen is very excited to see the people in the waiting room. And so this in-person life is very fun now.
Can you hear me now? I think my microphone is working now.
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it's freezing in here. Next time I'm bringing my jacket.
I've got a jacket, like, it's actually a very nice lace jacket, but it might fit you.
I don't carry the lace
jacket. I'm saying, like, I love it.
I'll wear it despite the fact it's a ladies'
Oh, good, good. You can see it wherever if you want to sit there.
Moon's bringing me a jacket.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. So this is Lori. Lori, I'll actually have you introduce yourself and then we'll go over to everyone else.
Hi, I'm Lori. I'm a community resource coordinator now with Township, but I was the COO at Senate for 33 years.
Thank you.
Before my retirement.
Retirement job.
Okay, I'm just big on swarm. Moon is making sure I'm fashionable. Or no, someone needs to dress.
You want to give your name and your position at Safe House for folks here in the Zoom?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Christine Watson. I'm the Executive Director at Safe House Center. It's good to meet you.
We'll start with people in the room and then we'll kick it to folks online. I'm Kristen. We just met for the first time. Nice to see you and put a face to the name. You already did.
I was going to introduce
each other in the hallway. Hi.
I'm Emily.
Hi, I'm Andrew with OCED.
Hi, I'm Amanda Carlisle with Washtenaw Housing Alliance. Nice to see you.
Rebecca Zazadny with OCED.
Marshall Averill, I work at Washtenaw Community College.
My name is Joy Clute. I'm the Director of Service Programs for Friends Indeed.
And then Patricia Davis. I always keep forgetting. WCSO, someone remind me of that. Washtenaw County SO.
Sheriff's Office.
Lovely. That's Patricia. She's having mic issues. So welcome. Thank you. Thank you again for your flexibility as we've been going a little bit over today. We did have a couple of questions based on the information that was in the survey. Amanda, did you have a question or do you want me to just go over to Amanda ask the question?
Sure, I can ask mine real quick. Christine, the The data, I think my question's yes. Oh, sorry. We're on the what we term HMIS data quality. I know you all use a comparable data system and then report that data to OCED. But one of the things that I noted was the high level of missing data related to the Social Security numbers. And Andrew shared with us that this might be because you might use kind of the last 4 of someone's Social Security number when you're inputting data, and the HMIS system currently requires 9 digits. And I understand that's going down to 4. So that was just a question I had of why that large percentage and if that's the reason. And then the other piece was around the percentage of missing data related to destination. And is that because folks are exiting before, you might get a chance to understand where they're going?
Good morning, Amanda. So to speak to the Social Security, yes, it's my understanding that for our shelter residents, we don't ask for the full Social Security because we don't have a need for it. And so it's best practice for us not to collect that data. And for the rest of our clients, we simply don't even ask for it. So I would agree with the information that you have been given. And equally with the destination as well, a lot of our clients will leave and we don't know where they're going. And especially these days, or especially during this period, simply because there's been such a lack of housing that a lot of people have not necessarily left us to go into permanent housing. So that is not information that they have shared with us.
Great, thank you.
The other questions are on behalf of Amanda Sternberg, who is with Detroit. She's on the FRT but couldn't make it today, so I'll just read these questions off on her behalf. The project's number of people, households to serve is significantly higher, from 35 served the past year to a projected 85. Why such a significant increase, especially considering there's no request for additional funding?
Is there an opportunity to request? Good question, right? That is simply based in staffing. So for the last 12 months, for the most part, we have been operating overall in the agency with a 50% reduced workforce. Our shelter program was specifically hard hit. We should have had 5 advocates and we had 1 for a large portion of that reporting period. And that unfortunately meant that we had to decrease our capacity, because we firmly believe that when we bring people into our services, we need to do a good job serving them. And we were unable to, serve as many people simply because of the low staffing levels at that time. So the good news is that as I sit here today, we have now 4 out of the 5 shelter advocates, which has dramatically increased our capacity, which is why the projected numbers are significantly higher, because our hope is obviously that we will continue at that staffing level.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. The percentage of people leaving to positive housing destinations is okay, but not great, 63%. Wondering if housing destinations would improve if the improved data quality on destination rates, which is that you kind of answered that I don't know that they're based on your answer to the destination rates that you would expect to see an improvement, but
not necessarily, because it really comes down to, again, the information that's shared with us. And so I don't know, would be my honest answer on that.
Yeah. With it for Amanda's questions, what other questions does the funding review team have, if any, for?
Christine, this isn't based on sort of the responses, I guess, except for that kind of what you just alluded to, just like the staffing challenges that you all have had. And I know it seems like it's, knock on all the wood, getting better, but I'm just curious about how many folks are in shelter at Safe House right now, and what the capacity is, or are you at capacity?
So no, great question, Amanda. So as you all know, I believe you all know, we have 19 bedrooms, And so our capacity is kind of tied into the makeup of the size of the families, because sometimes we have families that take up 2 rooms. So I'm just putting that out there to kind of clarify that a little bit. But right now, if you had asked me on Monday, we have 17 families. So we were utilizing 17 of our 19 rooms. And unfortunately, on that specific day, that did see us at capacity because 2 of our rooms are down for repairs. That should be quickly turned around. We're working, you know, with the county on getting them fixed. And that was really just as a result of people having left. And we needed just to get the rooms back in shape for the next person. But as of today, we have, and I'm going to say, fortunately, we are actually down to only having 14 families in shelter, and that's because 3 actually got into housing this week, so they were able to move out for good reasons, and we were happy about that. So we're not at full capacity, but we're running near it, and that's obviously a direct result of the fact that we have the staffing to support them. So that is our goal, to keep with those high numbers, but also bearing in mind that we try to make sure that we always have room for that person who calls us who really just needs to get out right now. So I don't know what that looks like in terms of us always keeping a room open. We continue to find ourselves in that dynamic of we want to serve as many people as we can, but we also need to make sure we have room for that emergent situation. So, yeah.
Thanks so much. I don't have any more questions.
Or did you have, I might share what folks think. So from here, the funding review team will be reviewing one more agency today, Avalon Housing, and then next week we'll be reviewing SOS and our other partner agencies, the Shelter Association and the call center. And then at the end of the day, my goal would be the funding review team would have the recommendations finalized. So we review all of the agencies for ESG funding and then kind of spit out the recommendation. It has to be voted on by the COC board, which will happen on the 11th on Friday. And so you can expect an email from me saying this is what the funding review team and the COC board collectively decided for ESG funding for the fiscal year 23 to 24. So sometimes in the past, we've provided feedback to agencies on like, hey, this is what we recommend you focusing on for next year. And I think we'll probably talk about that next week as well as part of our discussion on recommendations, just to say like this is something that we recommend to be thinking about. So you can also expect that if there's anything that this team has for you. So that's kind of what the next steps looks like. Any questions about that process?
No, we always welcome and appreciate feedback. That's super helpful.
And I will walk you out so we get a chance to connect, and then we will have Avalon next. So I'll give you all time to get to Avalon stuff, and then we've got Megan, Michael, and Melanie. We can admit them when you guys are ready.
Thank you so much. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Good to see you in person.
What is ESG?
ESG, did you say ESG?
Yeah, because I was looking at Avalon Housing and I'm just looking at the ESG and I really didn't know what that was.
Yeah, ESG stands for Emergency Solution Grant.
you.
Thank you for asking. We should write that out. We're so used to using the acronyms that don't think to write it out.
Okay.
Patricia, also, maybe just help with clarification. This is the funding that we're talking about today and next week, but there's two sources of funding. So one comes directly to OCD that passes through, and that's called the HUD, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then the other part is called the MSHDA, which is the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So the state provides a portion of their ESG funding to Washtenaw County as well.
Okay. And I gotta find out what's going on with Michigan also, because last year I helped some clients when Michigan had opened up their wait list to fill out their applications, and it's been over a year, and majority of the clients haven't even heard back from them. They sent them an email to let them know that they was approved, but they still waiting on the actual voucher. So I'm at a point right now, I don't know what to tell my clients right now.
I think if they are on the regular MSHDA ESG waitlist, that rarely moves and opens. And so it's typically years before someone gets pulled from the regular MSHDA voucher waitlist. So if that's what you're referring to, I think it's not a really viable option for many people, unfortunately.
There's quite a few of us signed people up for it, and they getting back in touch with us as the outreach workers, as far as what's the hold up and all of that. So okay, wow. So I can pretty much tell it's gonna be a while.
Kristen, I was just curious with Avalon. I don't have actually any performance questions, but I did have a question around, is there a match requirement for the MSHDA ESG that they are getting? Because they didn't put any matching funds down.
You can pull it up, but no, I don't. Let me see. Good question. And Amanda asked the questions are all for Avalon, so I'll wait to have those read.
I mean, it's been a while, but I think if I remember correctly, MSHDA doesn't require a match typically for the MSHDA portion.
Okay. But I also am hesitant to just say definitively without double checking, but I don't believe so. No, there isn't. No. Yeah. Question. Any other questions for me or Andrew before we admit the team? Andrew, if you don't mind adding all three of them, that would be lovely in the waiting room. Thank you so much for your patience. For those, for the FRT, we'll do quick introductions for you all. I just wanted to acknowledge Avalon in August is off on Friday. So just special shout out to Avalon for showing up in full force for today's rescheduled meeting. We are so grateful for your willingness to be flexible with us. If you can start with introductions of yourself, and then I'll just have the funding review team share who they are.
Hi, I'm Molly Smith. I'm the Director of Services for Avalon.
I am Megan Brooks, and I am the Outreach Team Lead with Avalon. I'm Michael Gould. I'm the financial controller with Avalon.
Kristen Kunis with OCD Human Services Policy Specialist.
Lori Lutumsky, I'm the resource coordinator for Ypsilanti Township.
Greetings, Morgan Boydston, OCD.
I'm Emily. I'm also with OCD.
Hi, I'm Amanda Carlisle with the Washtenaw Housing Alliance.
Hi, I'm Pat. I'm a community outreach worker with Washtenaw County Sheriff Office.
Good morning, Andrew
Marshall
Kramer.
Averill.
Oh, go ahead.
Marshall Averill, student support at Washtenaw Community College.
Andrew Kramer at OCED.
Joy Clute, Director of Service Programs for Friends Indeed.
Rebecca Zazadny from OCED.
So Avalon, this is really just intended to be an informal opportunity for the funding review team after they've reviewed the materials that you sent, the survey and the budget. There are a couple of questions. I'll kick it over to the FRT before reading on behalf. We do have a member that wasn't able to be here but reviewed and did have some questions for you all. They were looking for answers. And then at the end, I'll give you some next steps about what to expect from here. Any questions, thoughts, concerns from the funding review team for Avalon? I'll start with Amanda Sternberg. She is with, has been with the funding review team for many, many years. So she emails, I'll just read it off. I don't totally understand the connection between the number served. So this is question 3 on your survey, 31 adults. And the projected number to be served, that's question 4 and 10 adults. In the narrative response in number 4, there's a reference to the spending down on ESG/CV funds. Is the higher number served, the 31, due to assisting the Salvation Army in spending on ESG funds? Is the projected 10 people that will be served in line with what was served in the past?
So typically 31 has historically been the number that we would serve. 10 is a reflection of the reduced funding going forward with ESG. And so that is only providing 0.5 FTE for staffing and then enough rental assistance to give each participant the 6 months of full rental assistance.
That makes sense to me.
Molly, is that just a follow-up question? Is that I was thinking of it differently, that like there was ESG CV funds available that you all were using to enhance, but is that like old COFU dollars or the original part of this grant? Okay. Got
yeah.
It.
Next question from Amanda S. I don't fully understand the response to question 9. It seems there's a request on extension of the current grant. The response didn't seem to fit the question. Let me actually look at myself because I might be able to offer an answer. Do you want me to read that question again?
I'm just looking. I don't know, Megan, if you'd want to jump in on that. I'm just wondering if it is because of the delay in starting ESG dollars and, you know, if that is just going to automatically align with the contract, and maybe that was not something we had, because we had Bree Carpenter, who transitioned out of the role, who was a part of Rapid Rehousing and transitioned out. So some of her thoughts were captured in here as well. I don't know if you have thoughts though, Megan, on that.
Yeah, I do believe this was Bree's thoughts for number 9. I know that the delay and then the private market, just kind of how the housing market has shifted over the years. it has been unforgiving, and it has just taken longer than primarily how it used to be during the COVID.
I'm just pulling up the current budget to make sure. Yeah. It's the same. Yeah, that makes sense. So for folks, for the funding review team as context, when we're talking about like the timing and the delay. So with the disengagement with Salvation Army, we brought on the Shelter Association, we brought on SOS and Avalon as direct subrecipients. That took a lot of work with MSHDA because we hadn't applied in this formal process like we did the year before. And so MSHDA, we needed to wait for a pretty long time for MSHDA to approve them as new subrecipients and really kind of put together a system piecemeal in a way that normally isn't done based on like in alignment with the grant funding. And so it took quite some time for the contracts to go out and for the partners to be able to begin seeking reimbursement for the work that they were doing. And so there was a bit of a delay. So I think that wasn't something that was mentioned in number 9. It is context that I have to explain some of the delays that Avalon was mentioning. That was just the nature of the chaos that was happening. I think that's it for Amanda's question. Let me make sure. Yeah, no other concerns on her end. Avalon, do you have any questions for the funding review team?
I don't think so.
No.
Pretty easy, straightforward year.
So next week, we'll be reviewing our other partners, SOS, the Shelter Association, and the call center. You all have access to the packets of the effort. This was new this year and making sure that all partners, actually Masa spearheaded this. He was like, can I get this information? And so we asked all partners if they were comfortable with their information being shared. And so I wanted to lean into that transparency so you can fully review all of the packet information in the different agencies and what they're requesting. The recommendations will be voted on by the COC board, ideally on August 11th, so next Friday. The MSHDA ESG application is due the week after, and so you can expect to hear a response and a formal response from me by that Friday, if not by that Monday, on what you can expect for fiscal year 23 to 24. Of course, things have to get approved by our funders, but we don't expect any concerns on that end, and I'll alert you to that. I would expect, and we are very much expecting a very different experience with this fiscal year, and so 10/1 you can expect a very clean start for that year.
Awesome.
Thank you all again
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Yeah.
Grateful for you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
We've got a couple more minutes before we wrap up. Any concerns with, again, we'll be kind of reviewing more formally next week. Any concerns with the requests for funds from any of these partners? Anything glaring? You're like, I don't know if I want to approve that. And again, this isn't your formal response, but just wanted to see where folks were at based on the information.
This is Amanda. I don't have any issues with recommending these 3. I do just wanted to check in on I think specifically the Ozone House HMIS, and just making sure if HMIS, like OCED staff, are comfortable with their plan to, now that they have an agency admin and everything, to getting their HMIS data up to speed. And then my only other observation is I think these grants are like paying for half or not even a half of a person for each of the agencies. And that's just like, nothing that we can necessarily do, but just an observation that might be, I think, more like transparently shared with the COC board so that they know this is kind of how we're funding our systems.
Yeah, I mean, it explains Christine's laugh when she's like, can we request more funding? And technically, no, there's really no wiggle room for agencies to request more funding, which is really challenging. They go through a lot of work to kind of receive a very small amount of what is intended to cover the work that they do. So it's challenging.
it really doesn't help agencies with stability and staffing. I just speaking from the Senate side of me. The way things are funded is prohibitive to asking, you know, like you jump through so many hoops for $30,000 that you feel like you spend 50,000 to get 30 to, you know, help as many people as you can. If the system is not designed to help with stability. Hence all the problems.
Or to deal with, I think, like inflation, you know, and the rising costs of staffing, like these grants are pretty flat over time. I'm just thinking, reflecting on, I know, Morgan, you were at the County Board of Commissioners meeting talking with them about funding, and like if we could some way get that information back to the COC board and shared more broadly for folks, I think it would just help with the overall understanding of like the limitations of the system of care. And like these salaries aren't even really super competitive now. So that's, I think, just another kind of thing to think about.
Barely living, right, Amanda? Barely living wage. They want to criticize us for not giving living wage, but they don't fund us to give living wage.
Yeah.
What I can do next week is I'll have a draft of the virtual poll that I'll be asking the COC board to do. So for those that don't know, the COC board meets on a bi-monthly basis, and so we won't, they won't be meeting in time for us to be able to formally go before them. And so I'll draft some language just to really draw their attention in that virtual poll to the circumstances of that, and then more formally maybe add it to the agenda for September so folks can have that context. And just I don't know that we've ever shared the actual budgets from the agencies. We've shared the recommendation, but I think when you look at the budget, it is really compelling because you're like, oh my gosh, okay, like this is what you're requesting, this is your, you know. So that's something I can also play around with to see if that would be, you know, pretty compelling for folks.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I think like in past years we've had like a short report from the FRT at the end of kind of like the FRT season, and but I was thinking that your recommendation might be even better of just saying like this is what the agency is, you know, recommended for funding, maybe even the comparison of what they got last year, you know, probably even ish, and then like in like a note section of like what it actually covers. So for, you know, for rapid rehousing, it's you know, it's covering 10, you know, essentially, you know, folks getting housed, but, you know, like a half of a person, and, you know, for Safe House, it's covering half of a staff person. And just so the COC board, I think, can have a more clear understanding, because we have the, you know, like privilege of seeing kind of like more of the budgets and whatnot, but sharing that with them might be helpful.
Yeah, that's helpful. I'll draft that and make sure we get an opportunity as a committee to review that so folks can have some input. Well, next week we've got, we're kicking it off. We won't be going over the system data, so we'll have a little bit more time. And this ESG isn't more nuanced, but we are dealing with more dollars. And so I did want to make sure we accounted for a little bit more time, which is why we put those other agencies on the back end. So we'll start it off with the call center, and then we'll go to the Shelter Association, I think, and then SOS, or one of them. And I think Rhonda will be joining us in person, and I'm also expecting Dan and Kate to join us in person. And then we have Morgan with the call center. So she'll be here to answer any questions. So the packets are already sent out, so you'll just take a look at that over the next week if you haven't already, and we'll do the same thing as what we did this week. The difference will be at the end of next week's meeting, we do hope to just have a final recommendation to present. So I will also draft that based on just thinking that things will stay status quo, so that we can, at the end, you can look over everything that will be shared with the COC board. Any questions from you?
I just wanted to say to my fellow FRT members, I'm gone the next 2 weeks that we are supposed to meet, but I'll try to get my review of those 3 sent to Kristen by this afternoon, just so you have those written comments for me.
I think Amanda S. will also not be at the meeting, but will send them to me as well. So if that happens to any of you or circumstances change, please do just email them, and we'll record the next one too and make sure it's available for you all. So. How did this format feel for folks? Again, we're like piloting some newer stuff. So did this feel okay for everyone? We're still working out some kinks, but I think it was nice to have the agency representatives on the same day that we review the material. Everyone, I'll see you all next week for those that are able to join.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jacket. I love it. This worked out really nice. I'm impressed with how well the